to Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. I'm Kathy Pollard, one of your hosts, and with me is Carla Moore, your other host. And today we are both in Bowling Green, Kentucky, recording together, having a conversation in person. This will be way more fun than you being all the way in Texas. And you can tell everybody why you're in town and what you're here. I know you didn't come here just for my birthday.
Oh, I did. I arranged everything around your birthday.
Thank you so much.
Isn't that nice of me?
Yeah, why are you here really?
John and I came to be in Richmond, Kentucky. We're going to get all kinds of wind noise and hair blowing and doors flipping and wind chimes. It's going to be great.
Yes.
So we were in Richmond, Kentucky for a ladies' day and a men's lesson, and then we came down here to Bowling Green on Sunday afternoon to see you and to get to be together. And yesterday we went to the Ark. And
Yes.
this afternoon we're going to go to Denver for graduation. But the Ark was fun, wasn't it?
The Ark was really fun. We've been here for almost 4 years and never gone, and everybody always talks about how great it is, so I'm glad we got together. It was huge.
Yeah. How many steps did you get? Did you ever look?
No, I didn't look.
I had about 11,000. I
That's
think
a lot.
Neil said he had 10,000 more than I mean, not more than I had, but he had 10,000 when I was only at like 7. So he was probably just walking baby steps.
Yeah, he shuffles. Just kidding.
But it was so well done. I was so excited to see something that was Bible-based, that a lot of money had been sunk into that, which, to make something well done, you have to have money. So I was glad that they had done such a great job, and things I hadn't thought about. What were some things that you noticed that you didn't really think about?
Well, you're the one that kept bringing up really good points as we were walking through it. And the thing that kept coming to my mind just from the sheer size of it is when you read that one little phrase in the Bible where the ark came to rest on Mount Ararat, or however you say that word. And when you see how big it really is, just that taking place and what that would have sounded like. Oh, that's one of the things that we talked about was
the lightning and thunder.
They had sound
Storm.
effects while you're walking through the ark of animals and rain and thunder and lightning, and what that would have been like for them to hear probably for the first time ever.
Right.
And, what were they experiencing throughout that? And were they worried? Were they fearful? Or were they just trusting in God to keep them safe?
Yeah, and they had some of the, they kept saying, we don't know about a lot of these things, but like ventilation system, they had something, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but like a moon shaft, I think, something like that, where it was a shaft that would have gone from top to bottom in the ark, where that was open to the waves below, so that when the ark moved with the waves, the water would come up and it would bring fresh air in from up above and just ventilate the ark. And I can't explain it because I don't understand completely, but it made sense. They had a little video that they showed that made ventilation and how they would water the animals and feed the animals
and keep them clean with all the different reptiles. And I think probably that was my favorite part of it, is I feel like they came up with every single question anybody could possibly ask. But what about this? But what about this? Yeah. And they had all that information everywhere, and then they had a representation of each of the different kinds of animals.
Like the dinosaurs, they only needed two small ones that would replicate and recreate, and other they needed the kind, not necessarily each kind of dinosaur.
Right.
Yeah. And one of the things, we didn't talk about this since then, but we were talking about, did the rabbits populate, and did they eat rabbit? But I didn't even realize that they were vegetarian. There were things in scripture after the flood, they were able to eat meat, but before the flood, now I need to go back and look at it, but they had passages that talked about all of these green things you can eat. So apparently they were omnivorous. Is that the way to say that?
That sounds right to me.
Until after the flood. So it was very interesting.
It was definitely worth the trip. It was a 3-hour drive each way, and we were crammed into the back of Neil's little truck.
Yeah, but we had
with
fun.
all the snacks.
Yeah.
I'm glad we did it.
Yeah. We need a snackle box next time.
A snackle box.
That looks like so much fun.
So look at our shirts. We're wearing our Looking Up shirts because actually, was it yesterday that we hit 20,000?
Maybe even the day before.
Yes, and that's just podcast listens. That doesn't count YouTube views. So we're so thankful for all of you who have listened and joined in on these conversations with us. And we're wearing our Looking Up shirts that Emily created for us, and just praying that God will continue to bless this podcast and our time together, and continue to be thankful for all of you who are listening or watching,
and your encouragement.
For your
Been so encouraging.
And your suggestions for topics, or whatever we've talked about that day. When you chime in with your thoughts, we love that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite parts, is all the interaction throughout the week after the new episode airs. We get to continue it with the great conversations with all of you, so we're thankful for that.
So our episode last week was a little long.
I was joking when we were recording that, have we gone 3 hours now, not realizing we had gone 2?
2, yeah.
So we actually apologize for that. We did not mean to do that. We know your time is valuable, and we do not have that much good things to say. So.
Well, we have fun with it, but yeah,
we do.
We know that y'all have other things you need to do with your time. So,
and we're gonna try to be more mindful.
We have a timer.
We have a timer of keeping track of the time, so we're not just going on and on. We have lots to say to each other.
Well, we had 6 hours of it in the car yesterday, so maybe we got some of that out of our systems.
That's true. And we actually covered 3 topics.
Yeah.
We always think we might not have enough to talk about. And why do we do that? Why do we do that? But today we're actually talking about this idea of being dissatisfied, dissatisfaction in marriage, in your home, on the job, with your church family, whatever comes to
look.
with the way you look, with your health, the way your clothes are fitting, just all different areas that we can so easily become dissatisfied with. And it seems like once that takes root, it's really hard to let go of it. And it can affect our attitude and our speech and our outlook and how we treat those close to us and others. So we thought we would talk about that and really see if we can just get to what is at the root of that. And if we can figure that out, how can we address it? How can we be better about it? So I thought maybe we could just start out with some of those different areas. And I ran across a quote the other day. I should have brought it with me so I wouldn't butcher it, but it was really about marriage. So we can, if you want, we can start off with dissatisfaction in marriage. But the idea was that we all come to marriage. Well, some people come to marriage with the idea that it's going to provide everything that you've been missing in your life. So I want romance, and I want marriage to provide that for me. I want love, and I expect to find that in marriage, and intimacy, and friendship, and completion, and all of these things that I expect marriage to fulfill and provide for me. And the quote was saying that basically marriage is just a box that we fill. And so if you want romance in your marriage, you have to put that romance in your marriage, or friendship, or intimacy, or respect, or companionship, all of these things. If you want that from your marriage, you're the one that has to put it in your marriage and fill that box. And it said the trouble is a lot of times we're trying to draw out more of that than we're actually putting in. And I'm expecting more from my spouse than I'm willing to put in. And so when I'm drawing out more than I'm putting in, what am I left with? An empty box. And then I'm dissatisfied in the relationship and the marriage and how things are going. And it seems like once you start thinking along those lines of getting dissatisfied, you start noticing more things in that relationship or that marriage to be satisfied about. And so I thought that might be a good place to start, is dissatisfaction in marriage. What are some ways that manifests itself, or how we respond to it, and then what can we do about it? What are your thoughts?
Well, it made me think about Romans 12. It was something I had thought about years ago, about how we tend to wait. We wait for people to do things for us first, when really we should be the first one to do it. I'm going to put my glass down. But it talks about let love be without hypocrisy, abhor what is evil. I'm just going to read it because I won't remember it all. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Give preference to one another in honor, not lagging behind in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope. All of these things that it lists. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with marriage, but all of these are within marriage to the person that we love the most on this earth.
In
relationships.
We should.
Yes. So I just remember thinking, but what if someone is not devoted to me? Or what if he doesn't love me? What if he does not bless me? What if he doesn't rejoice when I want him to rejoice with me? Or what if he's not sad when I'm sad? And then I thought, well, what have I done? You know, what have I put in? So what if I love first? What if I'm devoted first? What if I'm patient first? What if I'm praying for him first? All of these things, if we do it, we'll receive it back. And that's not necessarily why we should do it. It's just a benefit of doing it. But, you know, it's just that we wait. And I see this in my own life so many times. We wait for someone to befriend me, or I wait for you to say hello to me because I think it's, you know, I don't want to be awkward or weird or whatever. So I'm going to wait for that person to come to me and talk to me. But why can't I do it first? You know, what am I putting in the box, like you're saying? So that's kind of where my mind went with that.
Well, and especially in marriage, you know, you hear a great lesson on that or a Bible class on that, and it talks about that, you know, that we should not be focused on the other person. We should be focusing on ourselves, because I'm the only one that can change anything. I'm changing myself. And it seems like once I decide, that's right, I'm going to do better, and maybe I'll do it for a few days and think, he hasn't even noticed. He hasn't even said, he's not responding in kind like he's supposed to. He's, you know, or something happens and it's like, that's it, forget it, I tried.
For a day.
But that's not what it's all about either. It's not that we do all of that and expect some kind of acknowledgement, or, you know, hopefully it's noticed and responded to in the same kind of loving, thoughtful, giving way. But that's not why we do it, and that's not our motivation. And if we're waiting around for it to be acknowledged or noticed or a pat on the back about it, you know, I think that'll just lead to more disappointment.
Yeah. Well, I'm blessed in the fact that John, he melts. If I do all of those things for him, he just turns into a big pat of butter and melts, and I get so much back from him when I put a little bit in. I mean, if I put a little in, I get a lot back from him. And I think, unfortunately, I don't know if you could say that about me, although it really does affect me when he treats me in a certain way. It's just a blessing to be married to someone like that, but I know not everyone is. But I think everyone can have an impact on their own marriage by what they put into it, like you've been saying. And Ollie's gonna enjoy my little Diet Coke. That's fine, Ollie, have some drink.
No.
But you know, just you be in charge of you and do what you should do, and a lot of times you'll get back even more than you put into it, I think.
And we were trying to think of a good title for this, you know, the true root of dissatisfaction, or the source of dissatisfaction. I'm not sure what we'll end up settling on, but really the answer is you're going to get out of something what you put into it. And that's true in all these aspects, but so true in marriage. And if I'm not doing my part, and first thing in the morning, it all goes back to that intentionality and praying that I can remove my selfishness and the focus on self, and instead focus on my husband or the people in my family. And I'm going to take those first steps and focus on what can I do to put love into this box, and thoughtfulness, and we know how to do that because we know the people that we love. And I know what makes Neil feel extra special because I've had time to learn that about him. And so I know what I can do to be intentional about that. And if I'm not doing that and waiting around for him to do it, as you said, then neither one of us are going to be happy. And it will be dissatisfaction. But the problem with that is once we go down that track, we start thinking it's everybody else's fault. Or the circumstances' fault. And that's most of the time not true. I'm not saying that others can be responsible for creating problems and heartache and hurt and pain. We all know that's true. But when it comes to dissatisfaction, it seems like most of the time really it's because we're not doing our part and we're not investing and putting into the relationship.
It's a mindset, and I think we just have just a terrible problem with this these days. But playing the victim.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I've seen myself do this in my own marriage, in my own just relationships in general, when you just start thinking that way, it's just a vicious cycle that spirals downward, and you just kind of have to shake yourself. But you can't shake yourself if you don't realize you're doing it, and if you're not being on the alert and being aware that you're heading that way. I know we've talked about this before, but I feel myself sliding down into that valley of victimization, and it's ugly. It's ugly.
Have you ever caught yourself, maybe something aggravated you that your husband did? Not that John ever does anything to aggravate you.
Yeah.
But let's, hypothetically speaking, say something did happen and you started sharing it with a good friend. Maybe I started sharing it with you. I started sharing it with my sister, and as I'm saying it out loud, it's dawning on me, it's pretty petty. As I can hear myself actually saying out loud what frustrated me, or what I'm so aggravated about, or I don't get this, I can hear how petty it is. And usually somebody with an outside, a more objective perspective is probably thinking the same thing, and they're kind of going, you're really just being ridiculous. And maybe you can look at that differently.
And we've had this conversation, haven't we, about using wisdom in saying, not saying maybe you're being ridiculous, but sometimes you recognize a certain look from somebody else. But even like you said, when you're saying it out loud,
saying it out loud sometimes,
it's helpful. But even that sometimes, we've talked about this with certain groups, how it just feels like gossip, and it feels like just vent. We'll say, I'm just going to vent. I just need to vent. And we have to be
a safe space.
And we have to be wise about that, because we don't want to say and do things that we shouldn't say and do. But with someone that's trusted, and someone that you trust that will be truthful with you, and that wants the best for you, and wants you to be spiritual in your relationships, and I mean, I appreciate that about you, and I know there are others, but John's that way too. If I talk to him about a situation, he may be silent, and if I know he's silent, that he's not saying what he might want to say,
That's so true, because Neil's the same way. That's pretty much the litmus test, come to think of it, now that you say that. Because if I am going on about something that aggravated me or frustrated me, and he reacts like, what? Well, blah, 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 I can tell that he feels that same frustration. But if he doesn't say, if he's pretty quiet and he just goes, that's...
Without saying a word, he's saying a lot of words.
Exactly. You can kind of hear yourself petering out. The more you talk about it and the quieter they are, it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't know that.
And having a sense of humor helps in that situation, where you can just, depending on, how mad you are about something, but if you can go, wow, I really am being ridiculous, aren't I? And then you laugh about it. That doesn't happen to me super often, but it has.
A couple of days later.
Give me some time.
A couple of days later,
Well, I was looking at some of the synonyms for dissatisfaction, and just these were eye-opening to me. Like,
oh boy,
they're even just ugly sounding. Disgruntled.
That's a pretty face. A disgruntled face on a woman is so attractive.
Maybe let's not try.
Let's not try it.
Discontented, annoyed, begrudging, bothered, complaining, disappointed, irritated, and vexed. That's just the picture of a nice looking woman, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't want to be that way.
No.
But how easy it is to fall into that.
Yeah. So I was looking at the definition. It's always helpful to me to look at the definition, because sometimes it means something different. So it's a feeling of displeasure or disappointment or disquiet. So dis everything. It's just bad.
Yeah. Somebody that's hard to make happy.
Yeah. Oh. And I've been there. I've been there. Well, so what other areas?
Wait a second, I have a question.
Okay.
So what are the opposites? What are the antonyms then of dissatisfaction? Did you look that up?
Gruntled the opposite of disgruntled? I don't think so.
Well, the opposite of dissatisfaction is easy if you just say satisfied. But I just wondered if there were some other words that would be goals to reach for and sound better and be better descriptors of me as I would want somebody to think of me. Not as a woman who's disgruntled and that just sounds horrible.
Well, one of the things that I think of is someone who is always the same when you see them.
Mm.
And I mean that in a good way. Like,
Right.
they're always cheerful. Everyone's not going to have a great day, a wonderful day every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so that person that always seems cheerful and always seems on an even keel, they have bad days too. But apparently they have done things that they needed to do to make them content no matter what. Like Paul says, being content in whatever situation you find yourself in.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe opposite of annoyed is being content. I mean, if you're not annoyed, you would be happy.
Patient, gracious.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And complaining, so that would be intentional to not complain, to always see the positives in
Not
things.
complain. What do you think we are? Superhuman?
Well, are we supposed to be spiritual humans?
We don't even have time to go into all the verses that talk
Yeah.
about not complaining.
Yeah, right.
Ugh.
But vexed.
Vexed.
Someone who's always vexed, and
Mm.
no, I don't want to be that way.
I don't want to be that way either.
Yeah.
You were talking about, when we were talking about sharing it with somebody, being careful about who you vent to or
Mhm.
share with. I wonder if maybe we should just start with God
Yeah.
when we do feel that way. And if saying it out loud to a spouse or a dear friend helps you kind of hear how petty it is,
Mhm.
what if we said it out loud to God first?
Yeah.
Because sometimes when I'm praying in a mood,
Mhm.
I'm too generic.
Yeah.
Just help me get through this,
Mhm.
or whatever's going on, just help us work through this. Instead of this is what's aggravating me, this is what I feel. If I actually force myself to spell out what I feel dissatisfied about, maybe
Yeah.
I'd hear that pettiness when I'm talking to God about
Mhm.
it, and He can help me see my heart and realize that it starts with me, and have I been putting into it like I should have?
Right. And I was thinking about that too. I had highlighted, have we prayed about it? Because there have been times that as I'm saying the words, like you're saying, when you
Mhm.
say something like, God, my husband is not being the way I want him to be, and it just, when you hear it, and then it just opens up the door for you to start thinking about all of the ways that he's wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
and it just makes us be more intentional about finding the good
Mhm.
and finding the positive, and not being so hard to please and so petty, like you say. Petty is such a good word for this topic.
Mm-hmm.
Being, it's just a good word.
You know how when you're talking to somebody and they kind of give you a hard time, they razz you about it, and they go, "Oh, poor thing. Oh, you're not getting the attention you want. Oh, do you need some attention?"
Who does that to you?
Anyways.
Yeah.
Maybe we could hear ourselves in our own head in that tone.
Yeah.
It's so real to me, the things that are vexing me.
Yeah.
But if I get in that tone, say, "Oh, but he's not being as romantic as I want him to," maybe we'll realize, just quit being
Yeah.
so.
Call the wambulance.
Call the wambulance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's lots of other humorous ways of saying that.
Okay, now, before we move into a different area, we had looked up a few verses.
Mhm.
Do you want to share a couple of those?
Yeah.
Along this idea of you get out of something what you put into it. It's biblical concepts.
Yeah. Well, one of them, 2 Corinthians 8, verse 7, as you abound in everything, in faith and utterance and knowledge and in all earnestness and the love that we inspired in you, see that you abound in this gracious work also. So abounding is intentional and helpful, and I think also Proverbs 11:24. There's one who scatters and yet increases all the more, and there's one who withholds what is justly due, and yet it results only in one.